Hello, I'm James Lott Jr. and my hands are dry today. I need some lotion, and I have no lotion nearby. But I had some lotion over here. I'll have to get it later. But my hands are really dry today. Welcome to the Dynasty 2 The Colbys After Show, where we talk about the show The Colbys here on JLJ Media. And we have been on for about a month, but thank you. But for some reason, last week and this week, people are listening to the show and watching it. So thank you for checking out those older episodes. You can find us on any streaming service platform, audio, and YouTube, JLJ Media, for the video. So thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe people are discovering us. So I appreciate that. So here's a new episode. But this one, before I go forward to any more episodes, I really want to hear from you. And you guys have been so wonderful. You have had some bad reviews. That's fine. It happens on every show I do. But many of you guys have actually joined the conversation. And I want to thank the Facebook groups, especially the Dynasty Facebook groups, especially for joining the conversation and tell me how you feel about whatever subject I bring up. The last one I brought up was Constance Colby. And this one, people have been asking me, because I've been doing these shows, I've gotten some DMs, people saying, why do you think the Colbys didn't succeed? And that's a really good question. And I'm curious what you think, because my thing is, it had the cast. I mean, it had heavy hitters like Charlton Heston, Barbara Stanwyck, Catherine Ross, even newcomers or newer comers like Tracy Scoggins and Maxwell Caulfield. It had Emma Samms. It had, it's like it had a good Ricardo Montalban. Like they had a good cast. Like I'm thinking, okay, so I don't think it's the cast. I think everybody was cast well. The stories weren't that bad. I mean, so the writing. I know that not all spinoffs actually are successful. They're not. And sometimes spinoffs are successful after the original show is done. So was that the problem? Because then we had two shows that were too similar. Yeah, Dynasty was apparent. Was it too much? Because sometimes that works too. Sometimes when they have, or did it need to be super different? I don't know. It's because like there was Mary Tyler Moore show, and then there was Rhoda, and they both were successful. But there was Phyllis, which lasted a couple of seasons, but it wasn't that successful. It was like Colby wasn't that successful. But then later, after the show ended, there was Lou Grant, which was a total drama and opposite. So, or with Cheers, there was Frasier. That came on after Cheers ended. So I'm just wondering, was it because it was just too much Dynasty? Like it just was not enough for folks? The writing wasn't perfect on either show at that point. Dynasty was like when its seventh season by then. It wasn't the greatest, or its 16th or something like that. But there was enough writing. There was some really good scenes and there was some story that I think were fine on the show. The location, LA, that's where rich and famous are, makes sense to me. The Colbys were a whole other side of his family that we knew not that much about, and they were fleshing them out. So I don't know either. It's and it was the 80s where everything was about opulence and extravaganza and over the top. Was it not over the top enough? I thought he had some scenes that were over the top. I don't know. I mean, Sable was a great breakout character, Tiffany Beacham. I look back and I go, and I watch these episodes and I'm sitting there going, wow. Like I'm enjoying it. There's some folks who I know, and I did a whole Fallon episode here. There are folks who just didn't like Emma Samms as Fallon. I didn't mind her as Fallon. I didn't. Yeah, Pamela Sue Martin, of course, was the GOAT, as they say, the original. But there are some folks who just didn't care for her as Fallon, so I don't know. But Jeff was great. He was a great character. Great actor, great character. I don't know. I think about that. I just think there were a lot of elements, like on paper, there were a lot of elements that it should have worked, right? It could have been another hour of Dynasty, and it could have continued after Dynasty ended in '89. Maybe morphed into something into the '90s, into like a 1 hour drama. But I don't know. I'm at a loss also, because I just feel like there are so many elements that could have worked. But in TV, as we know, you just never know what becomes a hit or what doesn't become a hit. And it was towards the end of the 80s. We'll get to the second half of the 80s, and times were starting to change a little bit. They're starting to change where it still wasn't as much, there was still excess going on, but I remember the 80s, trust me. It wasn't as much excess, but it was starting to wean out. I mean, they had the right clothes, they had the furs and all this stuff. They had white wardrobes, they had great sets, great location shots. But like all that stuff was like a lot of the shows, it was well produced. I mean, if you look at it, it was a well-produced show. Even when I was watching the Alien episode at the end when the alien comes, and I think I said on that show, I was like, that was way better produced than I remember watching it originally. Of course, when I was watching, I was a teenager and I was thinking about production. Now I'm in TV and production. I remember looking at that episode recently going, that's actually, wow, pretty good for it. Go on ABC, go on, Spelling Productions. That's the thing too. It had Aaron Spelling. I mean, Aaron Spelling, not everything he did, but most of the things he touched turned to gold. It really did. Not saying they can't wane out. I mean, Charlie's Angels did peter out after a while. But I think it's Tony Roberts. But I mean, but most of his shows then and after Dynasty were hits. He had the golden touch for the most part. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like it could be all those things. It could be none of those things. It just could be just not the right timing. Like I said, for them to bring a Dynasty back, and not the Colbys, but like a Dynasty reimagining, reboot, whatever you want to call it, this one is CW, years later, it's not a huge hit in America. But apparently that show's a big hit overseas, so they continue making it. I like it. I watch it. I like it. But I just always think why didn't the show take off? It's maybe the time was up. I don't know. But I think the show deserves its place in the soap pantheon of soap, nighttime soaps, and soap world. And that's why I decided doing this after show. And I'll continue to highlight what I do like about the show going forward. I am curious to know what you think also. Like, why do you think it just didn't work? Why, in terms of ratings, and they just couldn't keep it going? Because literally it was a season, and they say it's 2 seasons, but it was like a season and a half. You think about the number of episodes or whatever. So that's what I think. But we're going to continue highlighting the good stuff about the show. I'm just kind of curious. I was asked this several times recently. Why didn't it work? Why do I think it didn't work? I'm not sure. It had all the soapy elements. So why does any soap not work? There are some shows, most of the soaps that people have tried, I kind of like them. Not all of them. There were some that were like boring. And there were some that were really good, like Central Park West. I loved that show, just didn't make an audience, I guess. There was Titans, there was Pasadena, there was Sunset Beach. There was all these shows that came out that lasted a couple of years. They didn't make it. I'm like, and some of them were really good. I said Sunset Beach was, of course, another Aaron Spelling production. So not all the stuff turns to gold, I guess. I'm James Lott Jr., and I will see you next time with another edition of Dynasty to the Colbys.